Hi everyone, Idris here. Today we'll be looking at a very important concept in Power BI, date table. Not just Power BI, I mean in any analytical process basically, but emphasis will be on Power BI of course. And this video is actually motivated by some of the questions I got after submitting my Maven Pizza challenge entry, and of course the series we created for that. In case you missed it, you can check the description below or also at the top right there. So this is like the back end of my submission. So I got a question asking how I was able to have my dates in this format, because in the series we did not really have it like this. And then I also got questions about the heat map. I was able to create it in categories. I also got some questions about the holidays and so on. So, but in this video, I just want to address this one in particular. And I believe this can also answer some other questions that you might have. And that's talking about date tables. What are date tables? Date tables are basically tables that contain date-related data, as the name implies. One thing to note is that it's a dimension table or a lookup table. If you don't know what that means, I also have a separate video that explains the difference between a dimension and a fact table in your data model. The idea of date table is to have a date repo, if you can call it that way, that can be used to reference date in your model. I'm going to explain why you probably need to do this as we go ahead in the video. And of course, with the date table, the date functionality comes in for time and date intelligence function, as you know, in Power BI. So why date table? So date table, like I said, it's helpful in making some kind of calculations, time-based analysis. Also, you can like filter down or slice down your data into like month, quarter, year, weekday, week, month, and all of these things. So these are some of the reasons why you actually need a date table. So in creating a date table, the requirements are that the date table should have a date time column. It must be present in your date table. There shouldn't be blank spaces. There shouldn't be missing date in your date table. It means like if I have a date table, for instance, containing all the for year 2015, this is just an example. It means that no day in 2015 should be missing. I mean, every day should be there. It doesn't matter if we are going to need this day or not, but so far it is a date table, everything has to be there. And also it must be distinct. So again, talking about it being a lookup table, you can check the video like I said earlier to understand what this means. So how do you create date table? The first two are not like creating per se, but I mean from your source data you can have a date column. I'm going to show you that, so no worries. So you can have like a date column, and this can be used for data analysis or time-based analysis. You also have auto date and time. It kind of works with the first one. I'm going to show you, like I said. And then you can properly create a date table using DAX or Power Query. So let's just go over to Power BI and walk through all of these things. So I'm just going to create a blank Power BI now, and then I'm going to import the orders table from our Maven Pizza challenge. The link will be in the description in case you are just joining us. So let me just load this directly. No need to like transform anything. So once I load this table, I can go over to the data view, and then you can see that we have this table. Here we have 3 columns: order ID column, date, and time. If we come over to the report view here, and then I come to my orders and I bring in my date as a table, now you will see that we have this. Now something is going on here. In our date view, we actually have our date as 27th November and so on, but we are having it in a different format now. Now we have quarter, we have month, and we have day. What's actually going on? Now if you take a look at your right, let me just bring this by the side. If you take a look at this place, you would see that now we have date, which we brought, but we have it broken down into year, quarter, month, day, which is why we have this. So this is a feature in Power BI known as date hierarchy. We didn't create it. Power BI actually automatically created it for us. And that takes us to the second one we had in our presentation, the auto date and time. So we are basically treating these two right now. And so you would notice if I try to toggle this a bit, you would see that under this date, Power BI has created a date hierarchy for us. So under the date hierarchy, we have year, month, year, quarter, month, day, which is why we have this. Of course, if I don't want this, I can come over here and then instead of date hierarchy, which it created, I can choose just date so that we can have it in the format which we add in the data. So this is the first explanation about coming from source and also the auto date and time feature. You might think this, yes, is helpful. Yeah, it is really helpful. I mean, you can have your month, day, and so on. But the kind of restriction comes when you need something like just exactly as we had it in my Maven Pizza entry now. I need something like January 2015. That's like the month, the first three letters of the month concatenated with the year, something like this. So it means you have to do some kind of transformation, if I can put it that way. So it gets complex from here. So that's where the next thing comes in, which is like using Dark or Power Query as we have it in the presentation. It also doesn't stop there. The second reason why you need to create date table, all by yourself, instead of using this method is, as much as this looks very easy, we have this year, quarter, I can easily look at my orders, for instance, by quarter and year and all of these things. Power BI actually does this for every table that contains a date. So if you have 4 or 5 tables that contain a date column, Power BI will automatically create that date hierarchy for it. And you might think, yeah, that's cool, right? Well, it's not cool because this is going to slow down your model. This is running internally. You're not seeing it. You're not seeing what's populating it. If you see your data, you actually don't have it there. So it means that there's some work being done underneath. And imagine you have like a table containing millions of records, and then you have about 4 of those tables, and each of them have a date column. It means Power BI has to do this like 4 times. You can imagine how it's going to really slow down your model. So it's not recommended. Of course, maybe if you are just dealing with one table that contains a date, you can use it. But personally, more often than not, I don't use it. I actually create my date table all by myself. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. But before, how do you take this off? So we need to actually take this off. We don't want to use Power BI's auto date and time. So all we have to do is come over to file. I actually made this change. If you watch the Maven Pizza series, I asked us to make this change from the beginning of that video. So come over to file, and then you go to options and settings, and then you go to options, and then you just scroll down to data load. So under data load, you have several options here. So this is where I'm going. So this time intelligence, auto date and time. You can see right now it's checked, and that's why we had that date hierarchy created. So once I uncheck it, I click on OK, you would see that it's gone. So we just have date, order ID, and time, just as we have it in our data. Okay. So once that is done, the next thing for me now is to create this date table. So there are several ways you can create. So the first one I want to show you is using DAX. So how do we create it using DAX? So just come over to modeling and then click on a new table. Of course, it's a new table that we want to create. So I can name the table date table equals to, don't worry, it's not so complicated DAX, so don't feel like, oh, we're about to do it. It's just very simple. So we have 2 functions that can actually help us. The first one is calendar. We actually have them together, calendar and calendar auto. So I'm going to just show you one, and then I'm going to explain what the other does. So the first one is calendar. It takes 2 arguments, basically start date and the end date. So you can choose any start date you want, you can choose any end date you want. But let me just come from this order. I know that we are working with 2015 orders, right? If you remember. So I'm just going to say my start date will be date, and then the year will be 2015. The month will be 01, which is January, and the day will be 01, which is like 1st of January. And then the end date is going to be the same thing, date. Year is going to be 2015, month is going to be 12 December, and then day is going to be 31st. Then I'm just going to close that, and we have our date table. So you can see now that an extra table has been created here, and you can see the calculator sign, which tells you that this was actually calculated, not like imported. So if I come over to my data view and I just click on this, you will see that we have indeed date from 1st of January 2015 to, if you just toggle, you will see that it actually ends in December 31st, 2015. Now you can use this date as well. If I come here and I bring this date, I have my date. It also comes with time, as you can see, just because it was populated by the DAX itself. So yeah, now what if I need like year, I need month, just as we had it earlier with the auto date and time. You can actually create that as well using that. So if I click on this, if I come to the data view and I click on this column, I can come over to column tools and then new column, like creating an additional column. So now I'm just going to type in year equals to, then you can use like the year function, right? So, and the date is asking for the date, so which is the date column in our date table. So that's going to give us like the year. You can see it gives us all of the year. I'm going to do the same thing for month. If you want month, just going to click on new column, and then I can write like month equals to month of date in our, no, not here. I want month of date. Yeah, that's better. Not month of year, but month of date. So because this is the column, we actually need its month. And then you can do the same thing for even quarter, I mean, even for day as much as you want. But let me just stop at day. I'll just do that of day and we'll move on. So just gonna be day for date. No, not here. Date. So once you do that for day, you can see that we have year, month, day, right? And so if I need to, for instance, I want just the day, I can just choose this day like this, and sorry, as a table. So, and then I'm going to change this to don't summarize. So we have all of the days in the table. So we have, of course, from 1st to 31st. If I want just the month, you can also add that as well. Again, instead of sum, don't summarize. So you can see all of the month. This is all the days first in January to December and so on. So it's not really making sense here. Maybe if you add something like orders, you can see the total number of orders you had in a day or in a month, right? So that's the second way of actually creating your date table. And if you need more stuff, let's say in the case of if I want like year and like even month name, you can actually create another column that will be month name. So something like this. So if I just click on date and I click on new column, I can have like my month name equals to format. You don't actually have like month name function, so you can use the format function, and the format function takes in an argument, and the argument here is the date. So you can bring in the date from your date table as your value, and then the format, you can specify the format that you want. So I want the format to be month, so like you can use MMM. This is like, it's going to be like, January, like 3. So you have January, as you can see, you have March, and so on and so forth. So if I want exactly the same thing that I used here in my submission, this format, Jan 2015, it means all I have to do is like concatenate, like click on this, and then you can like new column again, and then you can say something like month here. Let me use a camel case. So month here equals to, I can use a concatenate function. So the first text I want to concatenate is the month name, and then the second text is the year, which is 2015. So I can say like year from my date table. So this way you can see you have like January 2015. But I mean, it doesn't really give us space. So there's no space. So to do that, you actually can change this. Instead of using concatenate, you can, because concatenate only takes 2 arguments, like I said. So you can use the ampersand, which is like hand. Also concatenate. This one can allow you to use multiple arguments. So you can leave a space here and then add an hand. So let me explain what's going on here. So you have the first one, which is the month, and then this and is just basically for concatenation. And then you are concatenating a space. There is a space here, not just double quote and a space. And then you are concatenating it with a month here. So that way, once you do it, you can have like January 2015. So the more stuffs you want, you can always like manipulate it. But there is a constraint with this method, and that's the fact that you are doing all of this in DAX. It's fine. You can do it, but as an analyst, long term, you would not only care about your analysis, you would also want to optimize your model as much as possible. There's not really a lot of explanation I can do on that right now, but the point is that moving forward, you would want to optimize your model. It means where you can actually take 2 steps, why take 20 steps? Or where you can actually make sure that your machine, your DAX machine, is not overrunning itself, why make it do that? So these are just measures that you need to. I always say something, or I learned something, that if you need to make transformation, one of the best place to make any kind of transformation is on your source data. If you cannot do it in your source data, maybe in like SQL or Excel, the next place to do it is your Power Query. Okay, so you can do all sort of transformation you want to do there. And then the least place you would want to do anything like this is your DAX, because it means that your model is really going to be slowed down because the engine is going to be doing a lot of work in the back end. And that's why we are going to the last method of creating a date table, which is in Power Query. So to do this, I wouldn't be creating this data table from scratch, and I would be making a separate video for that so as not to make this longer than it should. I'm going to be showing you exactly how I created one for my analysis Maven Pizza channel. And trust me, this is how I do it for most of my work. I mean, the public work anyways. So in your organizations, they would have like a date table for sure. So you don't need to use this method. But the point is, when I'm like working on challenges or working on public stuff, there are really a lot of data tables you can use on the internet. And I'm just going to show you one which I used for my Maven Pizza entry and how I used it, or how I imported it. So let's go back to Power BI. So now I will just go over to Power Query, right click and go to Edit Query. It's going to take us to Power Query, of course. So you can see we have just one table here, which is the orders. The order table which we created with DAX is not seen by the Power Query. Okay. So now I'm just going to show you where I got the date table which I used. I got it from Enterprise DNA. They are like a learning platform. This is not a paid advert. I'm just referencing them because this is where I got the date table which I used and which I'll be showing you how to use. So somewhere on the site you would find this. I'm going to share you the link directly to this point, and you are going to find this. So this is actually the code which you'll be using. Don't worry, it's not. You don't need to be a developer to use this. It's very easy. So I'm going to show you right now. Don't be scared. So once you are here on this page, just from this point, let's just copy it. Just highlight on it to the end. Just go to the end. That's really a lot of stuff. So just make sure you copy to the last point, this documentation, and then you can like Control C, which is to copy, or just right click and copy. And then we go over to Power Query, where we actually opened earlier. So I'm going to click on New Source. Just come over here, click on New Source, and then Blank Query. So once you are here in Blank Query, just come over here to Advanced Editor. Okay, so once you click on Advanced Editor, you have this. Let's just cancel it. Just right click and like cancel that out, and then just paste what you copied from that website with Control V, of course. So you have all of these things. You don't need to manipulate it or change anything. You don't need to change anything. No syntax error have been detected. So if you have any error, it means you probably did not copy. For instance, if I take away this close bracket, you can see that now I have some kind of error. So ensure you don't have any error here, and then you click on Done. So once you click on Done, you have this pop-up, and then it's asking you for the start date and the end date. So for us, we want it to start from you can actually use this guy to like maneuver that. I don't think you can actually go to the year directly without using this. So let me just type it out. So we want to start from 1st of January 2015, right? And then we want to end in 31st of January 2015. You have to make sure that it is in this format. You can see that that is the example we have been given. So you cannot use like 1st of December 2015. It has to be the format which has been indicated there. And then we have some optional stuff. I'm not going to be talking about these ones because we don't really need them. So the next thing, I'm going to just click on Invoke. So once I click on Invoke, we have this. So you can see that has populated really a lot of stuff for us. And not just dates. You can see we also have year. We also have current year offset, year completed, quarter, start of quarter. We have really a lot of stuff. And if you remember in our challenge, in our series, we were coming back here all right, back and forth to come and like create this, to create that. So all these have been created. This is the one we created earlier, and I guess this was one I used in my entry. So I mean, whatever you can think of has been created for you. So I think you don't need to really stress yourself trying to create this from scratch. But of course, if you want to know, like I said, I'm going to make a video to show you how you can also create this all by yourself. So we are done here. You just can rename this to maybe a date query if you want. So once you rename to a date query, then you can like close and apply. If you go over to your data view, you have your date table. So not this one, date query. Yeah. So you can see really a lot of stuff. Why do we have this till January? Oh, okay. I think because I created from, oh, that was a mistake, sorry. It should be from January to December, not like it's like January. But of course you can modify that. Okay, maybe that's a way to learn something new. So let's go back to Power Query, and then how do I change that? So you can actually, if you see the source, you can actually see like the query that is populating everything. So you can see this is the start date, and then this is the end date. So I'm going to change this from 1 again to 12. So it's going to go from 1st to, now you can see that we have it until December. Okay, so I'm just going to click on close and apply, and then we have it updated. Okay, perfect. So we have really a lot of stuff. This is exactly the date table that I used, and that's why I was able to get you know, a lot of options for my date. And not just because of the I'm not really showing you this because of the challenge. I think you really need to use this more often whenever you're dealing with date. Have a date table, dedicated date table that you will use for your model. So this way your model will be well optimized, because Power BI will not be creating automatic date for you, and that will slow your model in the background. So you can use this date table that you have created, and you can use it to model on all of your tables. So for instance, if I need to join it with this orders table now, I can just use the date column here and join it with this, and you can see that it is perfect. So I hope with that you have been able to really learn something today. That you can actually use a date table in Power BI to better optimize your model. So it's a wrap. If you do have any questions or comment, feedback, please share. And like I said, I'll be making a video separately for the Power Query, creating date table in Power Query from scratch. Until next time, we'll meet. Take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye bye.